Hello. Hope everyone can see. Hi. Um, I'm Dani. Welcome to this session. I was actually supposed to play some music, but that was turning out to be very difficult, so we're just gonna move past this. Today I'm joined by Mars, who is here with me to talk about all these things we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through a slide that we have prepared with some sources and prompts and images and lyrics that we're just going to talk through and use to talk through our stuff. So I'm going to introduce Mars, and then we're going to go through the slides, and at the end we will have an opportunity to engage with all your chats and comments and questions and everything. So, and we have someone keeping an eye on the chat through your questions and your comments. So yeah, add them in and we will talk about them. Cool. So first slide. Where are you coming from today? And the question, where are you from? And I'm going to hand that over to Mars.
Hi everyone. I'm coming from Brooklyn today. I'm not originally from Brooklyn. I'm from Broward County, Florida, but now I live in Brooklyn. And it's been cute.
Cool. And I'm from London, and I'm snapping you guys from London, but I'm originally from Nigeria, and that's why the song that we used today was inspired by Fela Kuti and stuff. So yeah, you guys can write in the chat as well where you're from. You might see someone who is from the same place, and that might be quite cool. So yeah, we're gonna start with like the main topic. That's actually crazy.
I feel like that kind of just like we had to like restructure the dialogue. Like that was like really unexpected. That popped up yesterday.
Like you said, like this is a screenshot from your Instagram. So you talk about that. Yeah. How is that? How was that seeing the news?
Yeah, so actually you were the first person to tell me of the news, and then I literally called my mom, and my mom's like, yeah, your stepdad is like telling me the tea. So I'm like currently getting like air quote live updates on like what's like popping and what's going on. But I can't lie and say that this wasn't expected. I mean, at this point, like with Haiti, it's like kind of routine, and then like pretty much like what we're gonna see like come into place here is just like the West like stepping in. Like Biden's already being debriefed about the situation like as the day goes, and then the West is obviously just gonna like step in and like put another puppet president like up in here just to continue the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say on that, like it just kind of seems like there's this kind of like perpetual like turmoil that countries that have been like affected by colonization, and in Haiti's case like slavery and post-revolution, like just being in this perpetual state of corruption and turmoil and just like war and stuff. And today waking up to this is just such an example of that. Like we've just come to do an event to talk about this stuff, and like the first thing that we see in the morning is so it's like and that takes us on to this lyric by Fela Kuti from the song that's inspired the title of this session. And it's basically saying, it's the teacher he talks about in this song is the British Empire, and like in general terms just like colonial empires and stuff, and the student is Nigeria or countries that were colonized. And the lyric refers to like the kind of mentality and the values and stuff that the colonial masters like passed down to these countries. And when these countries like had revolts or civil wars or like just became corrupt, and things happened in these countries that wouldn't have happened in their colonial like empires and stuff, the colonial masters wouldn't say anything. And that's that line, but when you no talk, no talk, so like the white people don't say anything. And it's kind of interesting because it's not that they don't say anything, it's that they're like literally like their intervention, they're like behind the scenes, like just pulling the strings and favoring the
I mean, yeah,
governments
they're
that
puppet
will,
masters.
yeah,
And
exactly, the puppet masters. And it's just like, wow. Do
unrelated, is there a way to like share my video too or no?
you have a video?
No, not video, like my like screen, like my face or no?
I can see your face. Can everyone see Mars's face?
I can't see me. Okay, well, if everyone
They
else
can
can
see
see
you. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Cool.
I was
Yeah.
liner on my chin.
You're good, you're good. I'll let you know if there's anything. So yeah, this is just another example of just the corrupt, like this corruptness we're talking about, but this corruption funded by external intervention. So on the right here is like Nigeria's first, well, the first president of Nigeria's second republic. And he was just like, his government, he was like just riddled with allegations of fraud and everything. And that's like the first or second election that Nigeria's ever had, right? And then on the right here is Banana Island, an artificial island in Lagos, built just to house massive homes for billionaires and stuff. Like if you type in Banana Island Lagos on YouTube, you will literally see like just these wealthy Nigerians like, welcome to my $3 million home kind of thing. And the way this island was built was that these people like contracted out you know, help from the Chinese government, from US governments, from the British government, instead of like contracting it from their own people and bringing wealth like to the country. And that brings me on to this like next slide about China. And like they celebrated 100 years of the Communist Party recently. And I'm just like, is colonizing African countries communist? Like there was this thing in the news recently of a Chinese restaurant not letting Nigerians in. So that was like so weird. Like imagine in Nigeria not letting them in and stuff. So like this government is taking out loans like from Nigerian people that they probably won't be able to pay back. And this is this
Yeah.
form of like neo-colonization and intervention. Yeah.
And you see the same thing mirrored with Haiti and France. Just Haiti being indebted to France by like $21 billion for
Yeah.
literally getting their own air quote independence. Like we don't even know what that means. Because most Black folks like still had to do hard labor like when after the revolution. And like even like the infrastructure of Haiti is like still really well, like largely like a it's just like I was reading something earlier today about, and actually I'm just gonna like read it from like the note I took, so I don't like butcher the information. But yes, so in the 18th century under French rule, Haiti, then called Saint Dominique, was the pearl of the Antilles. I don't really know how to say that word. One of the richest islands in France's empire. Though 800,000 African slaves who produced that wealth saw precious little of it. But in the 1780s, Haiti exported 60% of all the coffee and 40% of all the sugar consumed in Europe, more than all of Britain's West Indian colonies combined. It subsequently became the first independent nation in Latin America and remains the world's oldest Black republic and the second oldest republic in the Western Hemisphere after United States. So Haiti literally was exporting 60% of all of the coffee, going to Europe, only to literally have no natural resources now. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing.
Yeah. And that's such like that's such a thing that's mirrored across like this majority world. Like you look at Nigeria, they call it the African giant. Like it's the most like naturally rich country, like on like in Africa and stuff. Um, so it's just like how are they in these situations? Do you know what I mean? Like how are they in constant turmoil? And that's because they're still being exploited to this day. And if people don't want to believe that, like look at the facts. Like after Haiti's revolution, they owed a debt of 91 million gold francs to the French. Like
And I
how
also
were they ever
want to
gonna come back
add,
from that?
I also want to add to that. literally because of the revolution, like the way the international community just excluded Haiti, like all throughout, like Haiti was left out of the whole industrial revolution, like period. Like
Yeah.
Haiti was not able to accommodate to the industrial revolution that happened after like the Haitian revolution because of the lack of the natural resources that were drained from just like the war and just the French being there. And on top of that, there was no skills or natural resources like just being there to like accommodate to like industrialization, with also like the international community not even like providing solidarity to Haiti, which is why like Haiti literally not even part of the industrial revolution at all. Like, and
Yeah. It's so mad that like the end of slavery and the liberation of Haitians ended up being like the downfall of like the island and the country. Like once slavery didn't suit the economical needs of like France and like the colonialists and stuff, like it was just like that's it. Like the island's just nothing anymore. Yeah, and it's fucked.
And
But
even
they're still probably profiting off it now. Like I swear there was that initiative started to what is it, to like sell oil to Haitians at a lower price, and the money would be like redirected back to like Haiti to build the community. But like there's millions and millions of that money has just gone missing. And that was something that was like backed by the US and I think Venezuela and stuff. And it just gets so like you can just tell there's corruption there. Like it's obvious, you know what I mean? Like, oh. So that was just a little bit of history and just, just a talk on like a bit about the Haitian Revolution and just like some credit for literally the first Black Republic. And so what was that?
shout out to Toussaint.
Yeah, shout out to Toussaint. Literally, like, if you don't know about the Haitian Revolution, definitely go read up about it. Like, it's important history. So here we are, and about giving credit where credit is due. We're just gonna like talk a little bit about Art Hoe and just like being woke and how like mine and Mars's like journeys started. These two people from these two different diasporas in the majority world, and our journey to like wokeness. So I'm gonna pass that over to you, Mars.
Yeah, Art Hoe. It's pretty much like a movement slash collective I started when I was 15. Just wanted to provide like a safe space for just like Black creatives and just like Black femmes to reclaim like autonomy over our bodies, over our sexualities, all that jazz. And yeah, it's just it's a movement, a collective that I worked really hard on. And I feel like that just like working with that, a collective, and just like starting it, even though being erased from it, kind of just, influenced my just take on activism as well. And just my work with like marginalized groups, and just like even like, just like wanting to have like these conversations. Like I feel like that's just super integral. Yeah, that's
What was your like kind of woke path, like realizing this post-colonial situation we're in and how that's like just embedded kind of in the DNA of like these diasporas?
I think like once I started to read up more on like the Haitian Revolution and just like my own like cultural history, I don't know, because like I feel like especially being African American, it's I don't know, it's like sometimes you kind of just get lost like in the sauce with just like what's happening here, but in reality it's really just like there's like a whole like world, like there's a whole like Black diaspora where they're going through like like some really like bad things. And yeah, it's just like also just like paying attention to the Haitian Revolution and just like Haitians just consistently like being the underdogs. It's just like something that I've noticed like growing up Haitian, and then like just like seeing it happen in real time with like people just talking about solidarity and like international solidarity and just like the struggle for liberation. But it's like all this like solidarity and like, you know, the fight for liberation, but how come there's no like Black people being included in the conversation? Like, why do we seem to always leave out like Haiti, Ethiopia, like Nigeria, like from these discussions, like when it comes to liberation from imperialism in general? Like, I feel like there's so many dialogues going on, um, where like a lot of like non-Black countries are within the forefront, and it's like people expect Black folks since the dawn of time to just like show up and provide solidarity for everyone, but no one wants to like turn and provide the same solidarity for us. Like, i.e., like this whole dictatorship going on in Haiti, like the president just got assassinated. Like, where are the major news articles? Where is the social media hashtags? Like, where is the cute infographics? Where's the stories? Like, where is it? I don't see it. Where's the Refinery 29 clickbait article? Like, where are I don't see anything about Black folks. I really don't.
It's like linked back to what you said about like us in the West a little bit being lost in the source a bit, like we're not paying attention enough to like the places where like is literally like the root of this kind of like
Right.
ideology and justification and stuff. Like I'm privileged enough to have been born in Nigeria, so I've kind of always had that one leg over there and like one leg here. So like my kind of wokeness and understanding of all of this has been shaped by like my home in a way. But like over here, yeah, we just do have a tendency to just go with like just the waves and the trends and the currents, and we're just not really listening enough and not unpacking enough why these things are and like where they've like stemmed from and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like my kind of something that I've read recently that's like been so like illuminating is this book called In the Wake by Christina Sharp. And she talks about the wake as this like phenomena that like disproportionately and devastatingly affects Black peoples any and everywhere. And like she kind of talks about like slavery, and it's such a really good book to read. Like she uses semiotics and language and poetry and quotes, and it's so good, and it's like really like recommend. But it's just this idea of like we talk about like a collective conscience in a way of the world. Like this is kind of like this wake, this sea of water, you know, that the Atlantic Ocean representing slavery, or this kind of like state of consciousness that being a Black person or being like a like result of colonialism in a way, you're constantly carrying kind of these histories and struggles, and you're constantly having to unpack and like realize stuff and wake up and wanting to be ignorant. And it's something that like is prevalent across these majority world diasporas. um which brings us on to a conversation Mars and I had recently about like this thing like called like how the way Black people, and I'm going to say like majority world people as well, like post like colonized people, have to like unpack trauma about like their histories and their sense of self and stuff, is a kind of way like on the other hand like white privilege and colonialism and kind of the beginnings and justifications of that, you know, like what in the white psyche is kind of like a reflection of what's in the Black psyche in a way. Like how, yeah, I don't know, like what do we say about that? we in like PC terms, because I know I was like
um, I guess just like being a Black person and just like realizing at one point that you really just gotta like surrender, because like no matter what you do, like everything is just built against you, and no matter what you say, it will all be misinterpreted because we're just extremely hyper masculinized. Like, we're social Darwinism. I don't know. So
yeah, like that's backed
yeah.
up by eugenics. Like you're not just chatting, do you know what I mean? Like eugenics and race sciences are literally like the building blocks for our
Literally
medical
like science,
institutions.
like what we know as like information is literally built on social Darwinism. And it's like I try not to
Yeah,
think about it too hard, but like that's tea. Like literally everything that we have learned, like as a people, like as like a Western society, like has all been based off of social Darwinism, which is like it's really scary.
exactly. Like in our medical institutions, like I said, like our education systems, but also in like our law and order institutions, like, and that's why like Blackness is so criminalized. Like, we look at just the violence that not only happens, again, we don't want to just focus on violence against Black people in the West, but like the violence is taking place in these majority worlds. Like, here's a picture of like Haiti and riots and stuff, and here is a picture, like that famous picture that went around during the NSAS protests in Nigeria. Like, this is violence from the state being committed against like their own people. Do you know what I mean? And it's not, it's like it's something that I kind of battle with, like, in a way, like how far can you blame kind of colonialism and white supremacy and stuff, but you look at Nigeria, it's like just over 60 years old. It's so early in its history, and when you look at its history, like the colonial like, this is a blog from this really cool like blogger called Foluke blogs online. Like, she's I just love the way she speaks, and she really broke down the colonial origins of the Nigerian police. They were a colonial patrol, right? Like, there were different ones for different colonies, and the British merged all of those colonies to create one Nigeria. And this is like not more than like a century ago, like 60 years ago, we'll say. How can you expect a nation that is a merging of hundreds of different tribes, then you police them with like your systems and your justifications of law and order that are not only different to them within that nation, are foreign to them because you've brought your Western ideals and your justifications of civilization to their country? How are you not going to end up with something like this? When people are like waking up and stuff and the youth are rising up, like, how is there not going to be turmoil and discomfort and unrest? So it's like, yeah, this is the Nigerian police doing this under the orders of the Nigerian government, but that government and that police force is a direct product of colonialism and white supremacy. So like, there has to be some accountability or dialogue, like you said. Like, it has to go further than just, for example, defund the police, or like just these hashtags and infographics. Like, we have to unpack the roots of
Like
this
we
stuff.
have to unpack the trauma and the root.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not,
And that's what I mean by this,
I feel
yeah.
like people
So
say things like very loosely, and it's just like, but why are we defunding the police? Because like the first police in literally the United States was slave patrol.
yeah.
That's why we're defunding the police.
Yeah.
And it's the same that goes towards like any other like Black diaspora, like when it comes to like just um kind of just like defunding dictatorship, or like putting a stop to like inner turmoil, what's going on. Like everything is cause and effect, and everything is a direct result from colonization. Like same with Haiti, with like all like the violence that's going on. Like why are people being violent? Because they want the government to burn. Like they've been wanting the government to burn for like the last couple of centuries.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And we have to listen to why they want those things, and not just see the images that are just like being sprayed across our screens constantly and like desensitizing us to these things. Like, it's not just like Black people in a country somewhere fighting about this or the other. It's them fighting against these systems. Like, it's a systemic problem. And that's not going to be solved without, again, this unpacking and this dialogue, and people
Right.
actually being willing to understand those cause and effect relationships. Like, it's not just people saying that they're oppressed for the sake of it. Like, it's a systemic thing, and you have to trace it back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like you said with the colonial ties, yeah, in modern Haitian politics, like, it's why they want the government to burn. It's not even just the current government. Like, there's distrust for anyone, who might be in the politics of that, you know what I mean? Like, because again, that being a systemic problem, it's like, if you're in that political system is innately corrupt and colonial. And so it's just like, literally, like, it's on the whole government, like everything.
Right. Yeah, and then it's also just like, especially like even like some Haitians, like when criticizing Haiti, it's really just like, oh, like, the same things like happen all the time with like the coup d'etats and just like, but it's like who is putting these people in power? The West, like literally the US and Canada.
Yeah.
Like these are the people that's intervening.
Yeah. Like, can't trust them either. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's why I always get so iffy when things like riots or NSARS kind of things happen and people are like calling out to the UN and stuff. I'm just like, what's better, the UN or the government? Like, the UN is not good. Like, don't even have to go into it. Like, after everything you said today, it's obvious that all these institutions, including these charitable institutions, are all formed out of this system. They're all innately corrupt. So, like, what now? Literally, like, what now? What do we do? Do you know?
It's like even us like talking, it's like, so like what now after this? Like what do we do?
Yeah.
Like
So that's
like how much can we do as like Black folks?
exactly. And as majority world diasporas and like allies and friends and the youth as well, like, I think one thing that's really strong across all these kind of movements and everything is like that youth mobilization and stuff. And that's why, like, with events like this, I'm trying to bring the conversations like down from like politics, down from the state, down from like, like charities and these people that claim to like, do all this stuff or whatever, like, just down to the people who are actually like living and experiencing and are like results of this post-colonial like situation that we're all in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on that note, I would like to open the dialogue. Don't know if you had any questions, but we can have comments, anything anyone wants to say.
I did not look at the chat. Let me see what.
Hey, I'm coming in. Just to mention that I don't think there was any questions yet on the chat, so I can redo the invite. That if anyone is probably digesting everything you've been mentioning, because there was a lot. I think we can see if anyone you can write on the chat. I'm not
There's
sure
a
anyone.
comment that
Yeah,
maybe
and
we
then
could.
you can just draw from what you see on the chat. Go for it.
Yeah. Cool. So someone has said in their country, corruption is no longer a violation of law, but simply a habit. And yeah, that's like prevalent across a lot of these spaces. Can't lie, like Nigeria is a big one. Even Britain, like, look at the way the Tory government is just running around right now and doing whatever they want. Like, it's just like it's kind of like a bad dream. We just kind of watch everything happen and just like talk about it, which is what we're literally doing now. I don't know. The law as legal corruption. Yeah, for real. Like, again, with law and order and being justifications and being built off just like race sciences and eugenics and stuff, like, yeah, all these institutions are kind of like a form of it. Cool. Do you have any hope in terms of how things, oh, that's an interesting question.
Sorry, I'm like, I don't know if that was my building manager.
I don't know, so is everything calm?
No, it's like, it's all good.
Someone's put a question and it's, do you have any hope in terms of how things are developing in higher ed in your recent experience? I think that's kind of a question about like, yeah, just based off what we're talking about, like institutions and like the education like education institutions also being a result of that. And yeah, I mean, there's the whole kind of movement of like decolonizing education like happening and stuff. And I have, in my project, I've had a lot to say about that. And it's just like decolonization, like I kind of just call it a bit of a spectacle in a way, especially in higher ed, through personal experience myself and also through like what I have witnessed and stuff. And that's the same with even education in like industries and stuff, and as like Black and brown people having to work for free and all of that. And just being treated as literally just like workers and nothing else, like no value. Based on what you were saying about being lost in the source, this is basically a tool for post-colonial and neoliberal acts of suppression on a psychological level, like actively drowning people in the wake, the source to mitigate real. Oh, right. I think what you're kind of saying there is like, is kind of wokeness and outrage and stuff, like masking the real kind of like work that needs to be done, kind of. Is that what you're asking, Dom?
Yeah, I think it needs to be like clarified a little. You speak on the power of seeing.
So he's basically asking like the weaponization of like these discussions and trends and outrage and wokeness like as a tool for neoliberalism to kind of distract us from what's going on,
which is like international Black solidarity.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. What do you think?
No, I like fully agree. I do feel like especially when it comes to like Black trauma and just like the news covering it, like it just does seem to be like one dimensional. And like it's really just like when we talk about Black solidarity, like we talk about Black solidarity for like Black folks everywhere. And I do feel like, you know, like neoliberalism does have a way of just like trying to make like Black oppression like this one dimensional thing where it's like we have to like focus on certain things when really it's just like our struggle is like something that's translated like across like the diaspora, although there are like levels to it.
Mm-hmm. I think as well, following off that, like it's not just the Black struggle, and again back to that slide that said Black trauma, white privilege, like it's not enough for the conversation to just be about like, yeah, like the struggles and stuff like that. Again, the conversations need to be centered around the systemic reasons for that, and that also like includes allies and white people as well, like unpacking the history of their ancestors and the countries that they're in and why they're in these countries now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's work on both sides. Do you think corruption can be stopped in Nigeria? If so, what steps should be done? Honestly, yeah, throw away the whole government. Like I kind of think just similar, I think, to Haiti as well. I don't know. It's just like I kind of have this thought that for you to kind of climb or get somewhere in a system or in a government, even if you want to go and change it from the inside, like you have to go through this initiation and these steps and again go through the system, and it's not a very clean system. So it's just like, I don't know. It's the steps to be taken are just so like seem so drastic. And Mars and I were talking the other day and saying like we may not experience liberation and stuff for like even maybe in this century or in the next century. Like it's not something that's gonna happen in our lifetimes. It's like not, but these conversations, opening dialogue, people being receptive and people wanting to understand is definitely a step. Okay, more questions.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think this issue will develop in the develop in the future? You mentioned a lack of media coverage on Haiti. How do you think this issue will develop in the future? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on if people want to start covering Haiti. I mean, I feel like I know me and like folks that have like large platforms that are also Haitian, like we do the best that we can, but if people don't like care to join in and actually join with their input and like spread like information about what's going on in Haiti, like nothing is going to be mobilized in terms of like information. Like everything is just going to be like lost in translation or just like another yesterday article if like people don't start to like just engage. Or I don't know, it's like I like what more like what more can I what more can we do?
Literally, yeah, it's all, again, like the people who are affected by these things are like the people who are in this thing called the wake. Like once they're turned on, that's kind of it. You're kind of turned on for life. Like,
Yeah, like how can I not see it? Like I see it every day, even when it's not being reported. But it's also just like, how do we still carry that conversation? Like at this point, it's like on like other folks to like be willing to be interested in like international Black solidarity and not just like solidarity for a few places. That's just the
Oh, a question of that though, like in keeping or gaining people's interest, is there some credit to be given to kind of like trends and hashtags and to some extent like performative activism? Because, you know, like this again is the age of social media and stuff, and at the end of the day, if a group of performative people do something and one person takes something from that, you know, then it's good. Do we have to start branding movements now, basically?
I mean, the way like movements are so heavily tied to like contemporary capitalism, like you make such a good point, like the way just information being spread, like being heavily tied to performative activism, like this kind of like, that's the thing with capitalism, this sort of like transactional type of energy that especially non-Black folks get from feeling that they're doing their part in the movement. Oh my God, capitalism, like it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained. Like,
but you know what started capitalism though? The slave trade. You know, Blackness and Black bodies are like linked to the history of capitalism, and that is linked to white supremacist ideology. So it's like, again, we can always take it back down to capitalism and stuff, but we can also take capitalism back down to white supremacy. So yeah. On to the next question. How have you worked personally to overcome Black trauma and the impact of social Darwinism?
We were like literally like spiraling about this like the other night, talking about like Albert Camus and
yeah, I like, one thing that hasn't helped is watching this year's series of Love Island. I mean, it's helped because I mean, no, nothing. I literally sometimes I say to myself, like, I wish I was ignorant. Like, ignorance is really bliss. It's bliss. There's really nothing you can do. It will probably take a lifetime to unpack, because as you grow, you learn new things and your mind makes new connections, or you intend things like this today and you realize, oh shit, I'm fucked. Oh, my family's on here. Or you're like, oh no, I'm screwed. Like another way by capitalism and white supremacy. And it's just like, you know, it's kind of peak. I guess laughing, just like kind of laughing at the absurdity of it all is sometimes helpful, but then it just gets really sad. It's a cycle
of it all.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with other Black folks, like just, I don't know, like that's always what helps. Like just surrounding myself with other Black folks and just like community and, you know, just being in each other's like space. I don't think you really overcome Black trauma. Like I was talking to, I think we were talking like the other night about this, like you know, like Black folks, like we're gonna have trauma for the rest of our lives. Like there's no way to overcome, like we're gonna have PTSD like for the rest of our lives, and
for different reasons as well, like
you know,
all tied to the system.
And it's just something that it's like you learn to live with and just find joy in like your own personal Blackness and like the Blackness of others, and just like your community, like just being reminded that that although like everyone else needs to gaslight you and think that you're crazy, like just especially like being like a Black woman, like there is still community.
Yeah.
She's there.
Yeah, literally. Love that. What's the next one? I want to ask, what do you think about the death penalty for people who commit corruption?
It's like, what would the death penalty would not fix like what caused the corruption, and like I feel like in a larger scale of things,
Yeah,
like in the grand scheme of things, like what is the death penalty? Like people are still gonna corrupt,
yeah,
and also get away with it.
exactly.
Like 80% of the time people get away with corruption. It's like, even like with the assassination of the president, like I wouldn't even be surprised if the US has some involvement with it. Like there's always hidden motifs. Always.
I
Like,
don't trust any of them, honestly.
you think someone's like corrupting, but like there's another like puppet master above them. It's like a whole, like, I don't know.
Like, you think about it, with the death penalty, like who's gonna carry out that case? You know, who's gonna be the judge of that?
Like, who is
what
gonna
system is gonna pass out that sentence? You know, who's involved in that? You know, there's probably corruption.
Like controlling the guillotine is the person that needs to be under the guillotine.
Exactly. I think that answered the question very well. Kudos to the depth of your insights of events in Africa and the home countries. Being privileged as the diaspora, do you think that you can play a direct role in bringing about the change desired in the home countries? What would these changes be? That is a good question. Do you want to start, or should I?
Sorry, I like dissociated for 5 seconds. Wait, being privileged as, do you think? I agree. I mean, I do feel like, you know, especially like being like first gen, like I do kind of like have like a responsibility to like just use my platform, to use my resources, like resources that folks that in, like, I want to say Haiti, I'm just gonna use Haiti as an example because Haiti's a third world country, like resources that folks
majority world country, no more third world, we don't use those terms. Majority world country.
Majority world country.
Majority world country. Yeah, stuff like third world and like ethnic minorities, I'm trying to like ban in this space that I'm creating. So we're going to refer to them as majority world. That's like everywhere but Europe and America, like the places that people usually consider like ethnic and third world.
And thanks for calling me out on that, because yeah, like you're, I don't know. But yeah, but like resources that majority world countries like don't have, like, you know, it's just like up to us, like people that who have those resources to do what's just in our best power to do, which I feel like now, like what I can think of is like the best thing to do is to just donate directly to grassroots organization. Like I feel like that's really one of the best things that you can do, especially like with Haiti going on like right now. I don't know, there's, because of the corruption, like I don't trust the Red Cross. Nobody trusts the Red Cross. Like I would not donate like directly to those organizations. There's like a lot of folks, especially like the white folks in Haiti, like there's a lot of folks that have platforms and money and are very well connected to folks even here. And it's just like, I feel like in situations like this, like what, like the best thing to do now is to just like listen to people and also to just like donate directly to grassroots. That way, you know, it's like going directly to a group of people and not being funneled through all these like white folks. Yeah.
Cool. My answer to that question real quick would just be to, in terms of the diasporas who aren't like in our home countries and stuff, would just be to make noise where you are, because the place you're living is probably playing some kind of role in like corruption in the majority world. So like for me, it, like as a like member of the diaspora away from Nigeria, it would just be to make noise about like what's happening in Nigeria here and how the British government might be connected and stuff. And like with the NSAS protest, we saw that the Nigerians on the ground there, the youth protesting there, really appreciated the support that diasporas across the world showed for them. Like, yeah. I don't know what the changes would be. I guess no colonization, no white supremacy, and therapy for everyone.
Therapy
to
for
unpack.
everyone.
That is what the change would be. Like free, I would free therapy and like free healthcare would definitely be number one.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Hi, both. Really interesting convo. Now that protest rights are being restricted in the UK and other countries, how do you think we can apply pressure on governments to stop perpetuating colonial relations with majority world countries, both in terms of the flow of resources on an economic and systemic level, and tampering with foreign affairs in moments where there's potential for significant change, like in Haiti right now? Oh, okay. So in terms of the protest, I would say like doing stuff virtually, like you can still embarrass these governments and stuff without having to protest. We just have to find a way that we can like mobilize ourselves and our resources and our like information power in a way, like to like put pressure on these people. Like during the recent social media wave of Free Gaza and stuff, like Free Palestine, there were boycotts going around, like boycotting McDonald's and stuff like that. And like it seems crazy sometimes, but like this is why, again, like consumerism is such a massive factor in neocolonialism. Like as consumers, we will always have some sort of power, even if like our protest rights are restricted. Like we just have to figure out a way to like mobilize, whether through like Twitter or hashtags and or events and conversations like these. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I feel like also through time, like protest rights have been restricted, but that never like stopped people. So,
I think it might just like mobilize people more, if anything.
Yeah.
Like more angry.
We're just like, all right, bet, like comes like
the
size of the crowd that they came last time.
Yeah, and then people start asking questions, like saying things like they can't arrest all of us, and everyone's like, yeah, it's true, they can't arrest all of us, and we're all there.
Yeah, because they really can't. Like,
it's true. Okay, the last question, and we'll end there because we have 5 minutes. Can you each speak on the power of seeing the people taking explicit violent action to achieve liberatory goals? Interested especially on the intersection of stereotypes of Black folks and people of color as violent, with the inversion of these stereotypes as empowerment, and to what extent do we carry violence as a strategy in other struggles around the world? As this is a university event, I do not condone violence in any way. As my family are on here, I also don't condone violence in any way, but I will say that violence has always been a legitimate means in liberation struggles, and that is something no one or history can deny. That's kind of what I said.
I mean, like, I'm pretty sure no one wants to be violent, but it's like in order to achieve liberation, you really got to do what you got to do. And if that means being violent, then like that's really all I can do to answer that question. I don't really know what a stereotype is when I'm fighting for liberation. Like at the end of the day, like imperialism will use violence on like the oppressed folks, but then like the oppressed folks use violence back, and all of a sudden it's like but what about the stereotype? But what, they enslaved us. Get out of your country, period.
If there's a Black stereotype as being violent, then maybe there's like some like white supremacist stereotype of using violence on a massive scale. So who's violent? What's violence? what is violence? Anyway, that's a perfect way to end the conversation. Again, I do not condone violence, and my views do not reflect the university's. Cool. I think that's it. I think that's everything. Everything we ended with 4 minutes and don't have to drag it on. Thank you everyone for coming. Oh my god. I have another event on tomorrow where we talk about sustainability and how majority world diasporas are usually left out of conversations about climate change and sustainability when these resources and materials are being produced in those countries, and climate change is really wreaking havoc most in those countries. So I'll be talking about that with Harris Elliott and my friend Staffy Samaki, and it'll be really, really interesting. Get your tickets. Like, if you ever supported XR, you better come to this because XR is hella white. Just saying, like, that's just facts. Come to this tomorrow to talk, to actually like listen to voices who need to be centered in this conversation. Yeah, thank you everyone. Have a nice night. Have a nice evening. Thank you, Mars. Love you. Follow Mars on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. Mars Interlude. What do you mean, Dani? WDYM Dani. Yeah, and have a nice evening. Bye everyone.
Bye.